Don't Ever Follow the No Front Man Across the Bridge by Hyper Obscura. That's what my crazy-ass grandpa always said. Don't follow the no front man across the bridge. My grandma would just shake her head shamefully, and then tell me not to listen to this silly old fool. He wasn't well, she'd say. Fucking insane, she would also add. But I would listen anyway. It didn't make any sense, but it was exciting. It was like a fairy tale, or a scary story or something. Except for the fact that my grandpa swore that it was true. That it did really happen. That he'd really seen the no front man. Not only did I see him, he'd whisper to me, I fucking shot the bastard right in the back. That was the joke. He didn't have a front, so wherever you shot him, it had to be the back. He laughed really hard at that one. He came at me and I fucking shot him in the back. But the way my grandpa described him always gave me just the absolute chills. It wasn't just his words, but also his conviction. You could truly tell that he really believed every word of what he was saying. He looks like any other hiker, he'd murmur ominously. He walk real slow, and when you pass him, you'll notice he doesn't have a front. The front is also the back. It's like two identical persons melded into one, face in face for all eternity. He'd seen him several times over the years, but always on the same trail going up the mountain, Fletchers Trail. The first time he was only about 10 years old. The last time, it was the week before he died. I remember it vividly. Him lying in the hospital bed, coughing up blood. My grandma was crying at his side. It was about 5 years ago. The fucker got me, he said weakly. I followed him across the bridge. I shouldn't have done it. Stupid. He died later that night. Stage 3 lung cancer. See, the thing is he never touched a cigarette. Not in his entire life. I know there are other ways to get it, don't get me wrong, but he had a medical checkup for every year. Nothing. Almost perfect health. It didn't make any sense. A few hours before he passed, he told me what happened. I didn't believe a goddamn word he said. I wasn't a kid anymore, you know. We all thought he was crazy. You know, fucking insane, as my grandma put it, God bless her soul. I saw him up the trail, he explained, and I just had to fucking follow him. It's been years since I last saw him. He was moving pretty fucking slow. And I was struggling to keep up because of my fucking knee. And I finally caught up to him. He was halfway across the bridge. I said, fuck it well and good, and limped over to him, right into the fucking darkness. He swallowed pretty deeply. I guess you have to swallow pretty often when fuck is the every other word out of your mouth. Darkness? I asked. Straight into the mountainside, he said. I've seen them before. The bridges. They don't go anywhere, it just ends in the rock. It's fucking crazy. Only when he's around. Some fucking gateway or something. I sighed. I heard this part before. The bridges into a hard, jagged rock? Fucking insane. Anyway, I just fucking did it, he sighed. Limped like a fucking hunchback right into the rock. And? I stared at him. He wasn't looking so good. He was getting pale and sweaty. I guess that sickness really got a hold of him. I can't remember much. But I saw him. He was right there, on the black trail, right in front of me. Something must have hit me. I felt it in my chest. That's where I woke up. He fell asleep a few minutes later. Exhaustion, I suppose. It was the last time I would be able to talk to him. He passed in his sleep a few hours later. Never even got the chance to say goodbye. But part of his story was true, though. He did have a fucking limp. And he did hike up the trail that day. And they did find him unconscious several hours later. He was mumbling nonsense for days. Nonsense about the no front man, a black trail of smoke and death. He muttered my grandma's name and mine. Both of us were entangled in a strange, mentally ill narrative. Like I said, This was some 5 years ago. I didn't believe him then. I don't know what the fuck to believe now. My mom's worried that I have the same mental illness my grandpa had. Some sort of lunatic gene, I guess. I don't know what to tell her. She hadn't believed me the first time I saw him. She sure as hell wasn't going to believe me now. The first time I saw him was a couple of weeks ago. My grandma had recently passed away. We were clearing up their property. My mom and dad were trying to decide whether to sell it or keep it. They didn't really need it. It wasn't big. It was just a cozy little cottage, surrounded by some pretty deep forest and tall, majestic mountains. But it did have personality. And I'm pretty sure Grandpa buried some crazy-ass treasure somewhere. I'm pretty sure he would do something like that. The insane fucker that he was. Anyway, I was getting pretty bored with dusting, cleaning, and carrying. So I decided to take a stroll. It was a fine day, pretty sunny, a little windy. And I hadn't been up the trail to Fletcher's Mouth in ages. I would never walk it alone as a kid. Because of the no front man. But the thought never crossed my mind that day. I had just reached Fletcher's Neck and I was considering turning back. The wind was picking up and I didn't really have any hiking gear, save for my backpack with some water. When I saw this dark, ominous cloud coming over, it was coming over the mountains when I made my choice. I hustled down the trail. I guess I was about halfway to Fletcher's belly when I spotted him. He looked like just any other hiker, just like my grandpa said, so I didn't really pay much attention to him before I got real close. And then it took my brain quite a few moments to catch up to what I was seeing. He was coming at me, backwards, but his knees, they were bending normally, By the time I realized what I was seeing, it was too late. I don't know what he did, but whatever it was, it sent me rolling down the trail. Looking back at it, I think it must have been as I passed him. When I saw his front side, back side, I don't know. I just felt this immense pain in my chest, and before I knew it, I was airborne. I remained conscious as I tumbled down the trail, and when I finally came to a stop, I jumped back to my feet and ran as fast as my legs could carry me. It was pretty fucking dangerous. One slight misstep and I could have dived headfirst into some jagged hillside. But fuck me, I didn't want to stop either. The terror that overcame me, it overcame my brain and finally caught up to my eyes and nearly gave me a fucking heart attack. I didn't feel safe until I was all the way down onto Fletcher's toes. I took off my shirt, and I stared in shock at dozens of bleeding wounds all over my chest. Tiny little, perfectly round puncture wounds, like some insane sharp claws. When I got back to the cottage and told my parents what had happened, it was like I instantly became my grandpa. The look on their faces, that slight grimace of disbelief before they feverishly try to insane-splain everything away. But I'd seen it. I'd seen it all before. Hell, I've probably done it a couple of times myself. But the fucking wounds! I yelled in frustration. How do you explain that? You probably just rolled over a jagged foundation by Fletcher's groin, Dad said. Did I? Because that might almost explain it. Did I just conjure up the no front man like my grandpa had? Some weird figment of my imagination, spurred on by a crazy dead fossil? I don't know. But it didn't feel like a hallucination. I had taken mushrooms and acid before. That trip didn't come close to what I experienced that day. Mom finally calmed me down and bandaged up my wounds. They weren't that deep, but it was just so many of them. They fucking hurt like hell. We packed up and headed home a few hours later. They had come to the conclusion that while I was gone, they were going to sell the place. I don't know if it bothered me that much, but I did sort of grow up there, at least on the weekends. We'd spend just about every weekend up in the mountains with my grandparents, and most of the time I felt nothing but joy there. So, selling the place? I don't know. It just made me feel hollow, I guess. So, I went up there one last time. Just to say goodbye to my childhood, I suppose. And to prove to my mom that I wasn't batshit insane. There was a fucking no front man up there. And I wasn't gonna leave until I caught him on camera. I followed the same trail I did last time. Well, they were all the same trail. Really, they just forked a little all over the place. Eventually, they all joined up at Fletcher's Heart, where there was just a single vein all the way up to the mouth. I must have hiked for a couple hours when I saw it. Up until then, there was just nothing. Not a sound, not a bat, bee, squirrel, nothing. It was like the mountain knew I was coming and just told everything else to fuck off. But this I could see. It was a humpback bridge leading into the mountainside, ending abruptly in a rock. I don't know how long I stood there, mouth just agape, staring at the bizarre construct. It was just a normal bridge, nothing special about it. But it wasn't supposed to be there. After a while, I gently tapped my foot on it to see if I could, stand on it to see if it was real. And it did feel sturdy enough. And I was just gonna snap a few pictures when I saw him. It was the no front man. He was suddenly coming right up behind me. His jarring, disturbing walk instantly sent me to a state of maddening shock. I didn't know what to do. He was too close for me to pass him safely. So, I did it. Just like my grandpa said. I ran over to the bridge, straight into the rock wall. And I passed through. It was a gateway, all right, but there was nothing on the other side. Just a black trail in the smoke. I could hardly see an inch before me, but I quickly realized that I would die a horrible death if I ever stepped off of the trail. Beyond that, nothing but a gaping void. But somehow, I knew that there was something down there in this endless abyss. Something that would tear me limb from limb, suture me back together, then start all over again from scratch. I paced blindly along the black trail for hours, always kind of sensing that there was someone close behind me in pursuit. The trail forked and curved every once in a while, and when I chose the wrong path, I would run into him, the no front man. Suddenly he would be right there, right in front of me, and I'd have to turn on my heel and run back the other way. This continued endlessly. I can't really explain it any other way. I felt fucking lost in this grim eternity, and I had no idea how to get anywhere. I don't know how long I kept it up before I realized what was going on. Hours? Days? I don't know. Time didn't seem important in that place, but I did realize that the black trail wasn't just this seemingly random weird forking path. It was Fletcher's Trail, just without the forest, the mountains, or anything. And I knew that trail by heart. And for some reason it just hit me. I needed to get to the mouth. I ran into the no front man a couple of times, but knowing where the forks led, I always found a way to avoid him. He was always right there though, always appearing. I just needed to get to the heart before him. I jogged and sometimes ran the entire way, following the fastest route I could think of, relying on nothing but memory. And I did. I reached it first. The heart. The mouth was in reach now, so I calmed down. I took a breather. That was fucking stupid. I saw the mouth ahead, the yawning chasm. It seemed almost like liquid, like some weird oily film was covering it. I guess I felt relief and, pride, and I stopped paying attention, just for a moment, and I stuck my hands into the mouth. Felt this weird liquid covering them, slithering disgustingly through my fingers. But then, something pushed me back. Something emerging from the mouth. A black shadowy entity waddled into it. The weird, vaguely humanoid shape was pacing towards me. I lost balance, almost stumbling over the edge of the trail. And I acted, I don't know, I guess on pure instinct. Fight or flight. Something to that effect. All I know is I swung my black, oily fist right into this bizarre thing coming at me. And I say right into, because that's exactly what happened. They went straight through this creature's flesh and into the core of the being. I could hear it wailing in pain, furiously trying to escape me. I felt its pulse throbbing as I desperately tried to pull my hands out of it. And then I realized what I had done. And I saw it. The creature. I saw the creature's face. It was my grandpa. I panicked. I don't know. I guess I just lost it. I left him lying there, clutching his chest. He was murmuring my name, and I just ran. Jumped out of the mouth. I really can't remember much else. Just besides walking to the hospital a couple of days later. My mom was crying at my side. My dad's somber gaze was staring empty into a wall. Well, that's the end of my tale, I guess. You might not understand what I went through, but at least I've given you a brief insight into what I now find myself dealing with. It's a real catch-22 situation, let me tell you. Either I hallucinated everything, just proving the point that there are some seriously disturbing genetic mental illness shit going on. Or, alternatively, I went back in time and gave my grandpa cancer. Whatever it may be, my advice remains the same. Don't ever follow the no front man across the bridge. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this story. Please make sure you go check out the author. All their links are in the description. Make sure you go check out the author's Facebook page as well. Just go over there, give it a like. And now let's say thank you to the lovely patrons currently listed on screen. Dan R., Paul Z., Cody V., Chaos X, Mr. Swiston, Official Jerboa, JY Pyromancer, Hayden MH, Ethan A., Dark Side of the Bear, Daniel H., and Maximilian Charles P. Guys, thank you so much. You have no idea how much your support really means to me and this channel. You are the best, and I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you.